Hello, my name is Henry Byrne, and today I'm going to be giving a presentation on the Villanelle. It is a poetic form. So first, let's talk a little bit about what the Villanelle is and where it comes from. So a little bit of discourse, a little bit of argument over where the Villanelle, once again, comes from. Um, some believe it began during the Renaissance, inspired by Italian and Spanish dance songs known as villanellas or villancicos, coming from the Italian meaning peasant, but it did not start off as a fixed form. As we'll get into later, the Villanelle is a very heavily structured poem. There's a very strict structure to it, but it didn't start out that way. Originally, it was just basically rural or pastoral poems. Many of them did happen to rhyme because they were lyric in quality, but they did not rhyme necessarily in the way that the Villanelle did rhyme. And so, because of that, there is a lot of discourse over when the actual Villanelle began. Um, so, it's possible it began all the way back in the 16th century with this one poem, of course, called the Villanelle by the French poet Jean Passeray. Or in French, the poem was called J'ai perdu ma tortille, I believe. I don't speak French, so I'm working my best on pronunciation there. But it wasn't officially defined as a fixed form until the late 19th century. No one said, if you write a poem this way, it's a villanelle, until French poet Theodore de Bonville. Um, However, most people agree that the villanelle is now seen as a French poem. It has a French identity, which is interesting because following the 19th century, it lost a lot of its popularity in France. And today, most people that know the Villanelle know it from its contemporary English poets, the people who took this French form and made it their own in the English language. So they do not follow the traditional pastoral rules and boundaries. They can, but much more so, it's an open-ended genre. It can be written about anything. And then also the Villanelle, which originally had a very strict form and strict structure, now in the contemporary world, there's a lot of variation and alteration allowed to enhance the art. So I keep talking about the form. What is the form? I know this slide can seem a little bit intimidating, but I promise I'll break it down later. It'll be very easy. So there are 6 stanzas totals. Stanzas 1 through 5 have 3 lines, and the 6th stanza has 4 lines. So it's 5 tercets, or 3-line poems, or 3-line stanzas, and then 1 quatrain, which is 4-line poem. That's 19 lines total if you're counting. And then there's an A-B-A rhyme scheme throughout the poem. But what makes the Villanelle so memorable is its refrain. This is what makes the Villanelle a Villanelle. So what that means is, and I know this seems complicated, but I'll show a diagram and I'll show examples. For the refrains, line 1 of stanza 1 will repeat as the last lines of stanzas 2 and stanza 4. And line 3 of stanza 1 will repeat as the last line of stanzas 3 and stanza 5. And then those line 1 and line 3 that are the refrains, they're going to be the last couplet. They're going to be the last 2 lines of the poem. And this is done for a looping circular effect. I put on a roller coaster if it helps as a visual. It calls a lot of attention to these refrains. It causes the reader to really focus on it. Throughout the poem, oftentimes the meaning behind these refrains can either grow larger or more significant or emphasized or even change, which is always exciting and fun. And this produces a bit of a lyric effect, as I've written here. It makes it a little bit more sing-song, but it also creates a very obsessive tone to the poem. It's hard to repeat something 4 times in 19 lines and not have it seem like the speaker of your poem is really fixated on it. So it's a good poem form for fixations and obsessions. This is a little bit of a diagram that I hope makes it a little bit easier to understand. So again, we have here, I believe you can see my cursor, 5 tercets and 1 quatrain. And then it's A-B-A, A-B throughout. And then line 1 is repeated here, 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 and here. Line 3, here, here, and here, as you can read. Now I'll show you here what that looks like with the famed early Jean Passeray Villanelle. I will not read it in French. If you know French, feel free to pause me and enjoy it in that way. But I will now read to you in the spirit of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, it in the English translation. I have lost my turtle dove. Isn't that her gentle coo? I will go and find my love. Hear you mourn your mated love. O God, I am mourning too. I have lost my turtle dove. If you trust your faithful dove, trust my faith is just as true. I will go and find my love. Plaintively you speak your love. All my speech is turned into, I have lost my turtle dove. Such a beauty was my dove. Other beauties will not do. I will go and find my love. Death again entreated of, take one who is offered you. I have lost my turtle dove. I will go and find my love. So that is the structure. That's what it looks like to actually see it. If you're looking for a modern example that was made right in English, Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night by Dylan Thomas is probably the most famous contemporary example. That's probably the most famous because it's very, very good. But as we'll just quickly look here, as you can see, I have lost my turtle dove becomes I have lost my turtle dove. I have lost my turtle dove, in quotes, light difference, but it's there. And then I have lost my turtle dove. I will go and find my love. I'll go, go, go. You can see it. So this is an example of a poem that sticks very, very closely to the rules. This is a poem that is traditional in its pastoral sense with the turtle dove, but also just in the form sense. This is possibly the golden example of it. If you want to do a quote unquote perfect Villanelle, you should look at Jean Passeray or Dylan Thomas. But I want to compare it now to a more modern example. This is Villanelle after Wittgenstein by H.L. Hicks. It was written in September of 1991, so a far cry away from the 16th century. And what I really love about it is I think it's very good to juxtapose this one with other examples. And perhaps after I read it to you, you'll understand why. So again, this is Villanelle after Wittgenstein. After he had said this, he asked her, his judge, do I understand the sentence? He left her as he did the day before. In the bathroom window, out the back door, saying, almost nothing is not romance. After he had said this, he left her to construe the double negative. Sure, he could repeat what she'd let him do once. He left her, as he had done the day before. He did what he would do the day after. A fight is also a dance. He said, and having said it, he left her to say, love is death in miniature. It takes two to play the game of absence. She left him, as she did the day before. Every day is a day for departure. A failure always means a second chance. After he had made his final gesture, he left her, as he did the day before. So as you can see, this does not follow the rules perfectly, but it has some very exciting moments. So it starts with, after he had said this, he asked her, which changes to, after he had said this, he left her. And not only that, but it's after he said this, he left her to construe the double negative. This enjambment here is very powerful, and it wouldn't have happened if he didn't alter this refrain. And then he left her as he did the day before. Eventually it switched and flipped to she left him rather. She left him as she did the day before. So he plays with the form quite a bit here. And it might be easy to look at something like this and say, oh, well, you couldn't follow the form. But if you read this and don't see the art in it, then I think there's a bigger issue here. It's very beautiful and intentional the way that H.L. Hicks plays with the form. And I encourage anyone who is looking to play with the Villanelle to look at this example, especially this example in comparison to Jean Passeray or to Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night. And if you would like to write, I have a little bit of an exercise for you. It's called Form a Half Villanelle. Not a very creative title, but that's okay. I'm going to literally ask to write the second half of a Villanelle. This is going to be the latter half of the poem. The second half, the last two tercets in the final quatrain. And I'll give you one of the refrains already, which is, if I could tell you, I would let you know, which comes from W.H. Auden's If I Could Tell You, Villanelle, another great Villanelle. And then you'll need to come up with the second refrain. So this can be, if I could tell you, I would let you know, would be either here or here, and then subsequently here or here. And then since it is the refrain, that's also going to be your A rhyme. Your A rhyme is going to be no. So B shouldn't rhyme with no. lines 10 and 13 and 16, and on your other refrain should. So if you would like to do the exercise, I recommend you pausing the video now. If not, I'm going to move on and just show my example. It's a Christmas example. I don't know when you at home might be watching this, but we're deep in Movember right now, and my family is already a little bit in the Christmas spirit, which is fun. So Santa's on my mind a little bit. But here's my half Villanelle. Crunchy footprints heard on snow. You asked me, is it Santa Claus? If I could tell you, I would let you know. Think of Christmases long ago, where I did not believe, because I found no presents in the tree below. Yet now I hear that ho, ho, ho that makes my aged heart have pause. If I could tell you, I would let you know how I found presents in the tree below. So I'm a bit contemporary with mine, as you may tell, because I do adjust. I found no presents in the tree below to go away. Let's see, there we go, to how I found presents in the tree below. I added that little flip from my poem. And then if I could tell you, I would let you know, remains the same. This is just my example. What I really enjoy about the modern villanelle, like many other modern forms, is that there's room for pushing back against the structure a little bit. And that's what I did here. I hope that's what you might consider doing if you consider writing a villanelle, and that is my whole presentation. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something. Thank you.